So, what is it that women want in a man? If you don't know, last week I posted a video on a project I'm working on that is trying to address the modern gender war. And by gender war, I mean conflict between men and women on a grand scale, like socio-political. So, I'm not necessarily trying to tell people how it should be, but I'm just trying to help give information to help you synthesize. As part of resolving that conflict, I thought it would be good to research, well, what do we actually want in someone of the opposite sex? If you're a woman, what do you want in a man? That's a pretty good indication of what men, society kind of wants men to be, but maybe what they should be. Not always, but it is a good indication of subconsciously what do women want if you survey them and find out. Well, I found a really great survey in Psychology Today where they surveyed 11,000 women in order to find out what it is that they actually want in a man, what it is that gets them excited about a man, actually makes them respond. And this is what they found out, right? The first thing is confidence, playfulness, authenticity, honesty, kindness. And the things that, likewise, in the same vein, that turned them away was false bravado, lying, or need to control them. And that makes perfect sense. I mean, even from a traditional gender role standpoint, that seems to be right in line. Good things, more muscular than me, a deep voice, facial hair, taking control in a gentle way. That very positive masculine image there. On the converse side, extreme muscles, misogyny, or dude bro behavior. I'm not sure what dude bro means. I mean, instantaneous thought process, I have an idea what dude bro behavior is. I think it's just acting very unsophisticated, shallow, inconsiderate, but I'm sure women can enlighten me a whole lot better. That's perfectly fine. Some other things that are positive: kind, thoughtful, strong, a good listener. Also, when he is decisive and passionate, and when he makes them laugh, and of course, when he cooks. Interestingly, which I cook, so I'm the cook in the family, so I'm good on that. And there's other stuff too, and then of course the converse, that was not being courteous. A good leader, protective, assertive, and ambitious. Whereas if the opposite of that, being entitled, a bad communicator, and being passive, which is interesting because we definitely in the gender war we definitely have a very, very strong resistance, at least on the female side, on women resisting men being in charge. But then again, when you ask them, almost unanimously, they say we like them to be leaders. I would posit that I think women just want men to be good leaders, and not just bad ones. And that falls right in line with civilization trends too. Secure in their masculinity enough to enjoy what they enjoy and express their personality. On the opposite side, arrogant, tries to talk over me. And a lot of women say that they don't like it when their man tries to talk over them. And I think they want to be respected. They want to feel like they're intellectually regarded as an equal voice in the conversation, of course. So, I mean, why wouldn't you? Anybody would want that. You should be considerate both ways. But strong and powerful, kind and attentive. I sometimes like to be dominated, but not in a degrading way. So that is interesting that women would say that that's something that excites them. They like the idea of a strong man, a powerful man that can take control. But of course, being kind and attentive means that he's taking control and he's doing things for the right reasons. He's not taking control to force you into a box or to harm you in any way. He's doing it to take care of you or to represent you. And then being made to feel like I can't really say this on TikTok, but being made to feel degraded or feel like they are a less than reputable woman. I will tell you that I had to learn a lesson early on in my marriage, and that was I went through with my church, went through a program where we really talked in depth with what it means to represent each other and be a good spouse, things like that. But one of the things that I had to check myself on, that I was convicted over, was my willingness to speak critically of my wife if she did something wrong around others. And that's really, why would you do that? Why would you not champion your spouse? You should be your spouse's biggest support. And so very early on in our marriage, I have done that, and I need to stop. So I stopped doing that because why would you do that? Why would you degrade them? Of course, they're talking about degrading on a whole other level other than this, but I think the position still goes: assertiveness, attentiveness, kindness, open-mindedness. I love open-mindedness because it just means that you're willing to me, that means you're willing to put truth as an ethic rather than power. Men tend to base their fight on ideals and women relationships. And I think when women look at what they want out of men, they want them to represent ideals because they know the value of ideals and how they safeguard a good society, and they're essential to a good society and our thought process progressing. And of course, men want women to actually care about relationships, and we don't think about relationships all the time. We just think about the ideal is more important, and that's where they balance each other. And of course, the opposite of that, arrogance, hubris, and patronizing traits. And hubris is the complete opposite of open-mindedness, where you're just assuming that what you believe and what you value is right, because it represents you, regardless of if it's right or not. Other things that are great: hairy chest, clean nails, nice shoulders, this kind of physical stuff. The opposite's too much of an ego. Yeah, not into their partner. Obviously, I can't read some of this. Physical confidence, biceps and shoulders. They don't have to be buff, but a sense of manliness and independence. And the opposite, arrogance, over-aggression, being controlling, too dominant, and unemotional. So very, very not 50 Shades of Grey, I guess. Confidence, knowing who he is, being excited to be with me. And of course, something bad is ignorance and self-absorbed behavior. Other things that are good: intelligence and empathy. He's funny. And then, of course, the opposite, narcissism, self-obsession. Good thing, chivalry, knowing how to fix things. And, that whole adage, like, sometimes women just get frustrated because men just want to fix stuff, and women don't want to be fixed. They just want to talk, and they want to emotionally synthesize and compress. So I've run into that too. Then, of course, the opposite, thinking they're always right, like locker room talk, stuff like that. And I imagine what they mean by locker room talk in association with thinking they're always right is probably something to the akin of just a bravado talk. I'm just representing myself and just making myself feel good, and there's no need for that. And then they include mansplaining, but I mean, mansplaining is such an overutilized word. There's no way to know what in the world they meant when they said that. So, but the last of the good stuff, there's just so many, it's hard for me to put them in here. Confidence, humor, strength, beards is in there. It's great. And then the negative, arrogance, dominance, aggression, that kind of stuff. So I think there's a theme in here when you look at all this, right? And I think that when we look at our classical traditional gender roles, I don't see any difference from what's here. I think of the way that I was raised and the way I've seen men in my life act, good men, the people that I, even like 20 years ago, said, that's a good man. This is what they are. Maybe not 100%, because nobody's perfect, but pretty darn straight down the line. But I think that there's a lot of confusion and a lot of people that don't grow up with that. And when they think of masculinity, they think of something completely different or off the right. And maybe for you, there's more of those negatives than there are those positives. And you might be the person that just maybe because of what you've gone through in life or what you expect, maybe you don't expect those things. Maybe you're in a position where you identify outside gender norms, so it's hard for you to compare to those things. And maybe you identify with some, not others. Or maybe you just have a complete opposite expectation just because of your identity politics. What I will say is it does give us some information about what women want and what they subconsciously desire in their men by nature of what naturally comes up in their system. And there's a lot of discussions around why that is, and we could talk about that and see what happens. I just think that it's good to synthesize this information, realize that the positives in there aren't so different than what we've often always thought of as positives. Even if we're throwing this up for dissection and let's take an axe to it and let's dissect it and see what we can keep and what we don't keep. I think the fact that there's so much that relates and that is similar, even over the course of a lot of changes in our culture in America with in the world with gender relations, that's still consistent. That's still constant. Like women from 20 years ago feels like would probably answer very similarly, or 50 years ago would answer very similarly, 100 years ago. And that's important. Now, next time I could, do the men and see what that comes out to. But yeah, I just think it's important. And for my study, for my project, I shouldn't say study because there's study involved, but the project itself, this does go into it because I'm a fantasy writer, right? And I use fantasy to reflect my research and my truth. As part of that research, if I'm discussing gender, if this is what the kind of person, the kind of man that women want, why would I put up a role model that is not similar to this? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Obviously, I feel like there's a lot of pressure in the social media space and the publishing world to take whatever these expectations are, flip them on their head, and completely undo those. And, I cannot have a gender-conforming man to these ideals. But then women come back and say, this is what we want. So why in the publishing world are we discouraged from doing that? So I will say that I would never, I value truth over power. So I really don't care if I have popularity in the publishing world or with some kind of, other forum. What I do care about is reflecting truth. And so obviously, when I write a masculine character that is supposed to be a role model for that, I think they're going to embody these things, at least the vast majority of them, because of course I don't necessarily write perfect characters. You can try, but that's a different type of literature than I think the realism that modern Westerners have come to enjoy more. So obviously it's not a perfect character that you're going to write, but maybe you get one that is close, one that at least models that and points in the right direction. So if you're going to actually have a role model, it at least gets people in the right place. Anyway, those are my thoughts for today. I'm glad I could share that article with you. I do have more stuff coming up in the future, and hopefully you'll stay involved, and we'll have a chance to listen further into other details on the project that I'm releasing here in the future.